Hello, everyone, and welcome to Patexia webinar. Today, we're going to cover our recently released IPR intelligence report. My name is Pedram Sameni, and I'm the founder and CEO of Patexia. So before we get started, let me give you a quick history of the company. The company was founded back in June 2010, and we are based in Santa Monica, California. From day one, our mission was to use the power of technology and collaboration of experts, as well as data and information to bring transparency and efficiency to IP. It's a mix of legal, business, and science and tech professionals. So we have built a network of tens of thousands of IP experts with profiles of over 70,000 patent attorneys and patent agents, as well as tens of thousands of prior art searchers and IP experts. We provide our services under 4 different business arms. First one is crowdsourced patent due diligence, which is basically we run prior art search or evidence of use search by leveraging a network of subject matter experts and crowdsourcing. Then with the community we have built, it's been about 2 years that we've got into recruiting, and we've helped some of the largest law firms with their needs for IP attorneys. And on the research side, we do have a bunch of different tools and visualization data that's available for free on the website. And also with this IP Insights that we recently launched, we've got into patent analytics as well. So our clients span a wide range from high-tech and biotech companies, as well as law firms and IP service providers and financial institutes, just to name a few. So a couple of weeks ago, we released our IPR intelligence report. This is the most comprehensive report that comes in. It's over 100 pages. And for this report, we basically looked at all the cases filed from day one of IPR on September 16, 2012, through the end of the first quarter of 2017. Analyzed and reviewed over 6,580 cases. It included about 4,000 plus unique patents and about like 69,000 claims. We reviewed the performance as well as activities of over 1,000 law firms involved in IPR, about 3,000 plus companies, either on the petitioner side or patent owner side, and 5,000 plus attorneys, either representing petitioners or patent owners. And of course, the PTAB judges, their activity and performance, there were about like 150 plus judges involved in all these cases. So, by the way, during the webinar, if you have any questions, feel free to use the live chat on the right-hand side to ask your question. So the process of putting this report together involved like 3 steps: collection, cleanup, and analysis. For data collection, the project overall took over a year, and we looked at different sources. Obviously, PTAB API was the main source. We got all the data from there related to IPR. Then because we looked at the litigation and district court cases, we also included PACER data in our analysis. Included in the report, we looked at the type of technologies and comparison of life science versus high-tech or software patents. So for that, we used the US patent database. And obviously, to make the report as accurate as possible, we have also provided an access to all attorneys, IP attorneys on the platform, where they can self-report, any case that is either missing or potentially we have wrongfully reported there. So they can claim their own profile and make sure the cases are accurate. So once we had the data, then our data science team used different techniques such as natural language processing or machine learning to group and cluster different cases related to different law firms or attorneys together. This wasn't an easy process, and at some points, for some of the cases, we had to use basically our data analysts and human got involved to make sure the allocation is accurate. And once we had the clean data, we analyzed it from many different angles, such as patents or claims, try to identify any correlation between the data and finding dependencies between the data. And the final result, obviously, was the IPR intelligence report that we released on September 19th. Just to give you kind of a view of the difficulty in the cleanup, when we got the data, there was about like 40,000 attorneys, and once we grouped them and cleaned it, it was reduced to 5,000. For law firms, there were about 17,000 law firms, and after cleanup, we ended up with about 1,000, and for companies, it was again 13,000, which was reduced to 3,000 after cleanup. On the right-hand side, you see one example. Carl Renner is a very active attorney in IPR, currently at Fish & Richardson. For him, his name had been recorded in many different forms with his first name, last name, or first name, middle initial, last name. He had used different emails for different filings. So that was the complexity of the project, to identify all different variations and basically create a synonym table for every individual or every law firm to make sure we correctly assign different cases to individuals. So the report comes in 3 different editions. The basic is our silver edition, which analyzes the entire cases from 2012 through the end of the first quarter of 2017. We looked at it from the patent perspective, again, claims to identify those patents that survived IPR, patents that partially survived, or claims that survived. Again, a bunch of different statistical analysis and charts, for example, comparison between high-tech and biotech, the technology areas, or IPC codes that are more popular, for example, software versus engineering or other areas. Then our gold edition covered the performance and activity of judges, as well as performance and activity of companies involved, either on the petitioner side or patent owner side. And this included our silver package as well. Comprehensive report is our platinum edition, which not only includes the content in the silver and gold, but also covers the performance and activity of law firms, as well as attorneys, and ranking of the top 50 in different categories. So for ranking, we basically looked at different stakeholders, attorneys, law firms, and companies. We ranked them based on 2 different types, basically their performance over like different cases, as well as their activity on different cases. For each of these types, again, we considered their activity on the patent owner side, on the petitioner side, and overall. So as you can see, like a simple calculation, we have about like 18 tables just to cover all these rankings for attorneys, law firms, and companies in different categories. So the next question is, okay, how did we calculate? This is purely numerical based, and it's scientific, so it's not any opinion. It's based on the data. As long as the data, underlying data, is accurate, the ranking is 100% accurate. So for the activity, this is simple. We basically sorted the companies or law firms or attorneys by their activity on the petitioner or patent owner overall, and took the top 50 in different categories. On the performance, there's 2 questions. Obviously, the first question that people ask is, best performing. So in order to define that, we limited our data set to those cases that have got some sort of final decision. So basically, we only considered the cases that had either been terminated, denied by the PTAB judges, or instituted, and finally, maybe after it received the final written decision. And for that, we looked at whether there was any claim that was canceled, at least one or more, or all the claims survived. So this was kind of the data set that we looked at. And for this, we defined winners and losers, depending on the case. And for each attorney, obviously, depending on who he's representing, the winner and loser was defined based on that. Again, if you're on the petitioner side, we assume if the case is instituted or if it receives the final written decision and claim is canceled, you won the case. And even if the case is settled, we assume that the petitioner has won. And the reason for that is more than 75% of these cases are filed as a response to active district court cases. So when it's settled, that means like the patent owner decided that there is no point of continuing this. So for settlement also, we assume petitioner has won. If the case is denied or if it receives the final written decision and none of the claims are canceled, then the patent owner has won the case. So this is how we calculated the performance. And the second question is, okay, who was included in this calculation? Obviously, it's not fair to include somebody who in a single case and compare him with another attorney who was involved in 100+ cases. It's not easy to win all 100 cases. So for this, we basically had to limit the number of cases. We looked at the average of the cases, law firms or attorneys or companies were involved. And based on that, we only considered for companies if at least they were involved in 10 cases as a petitioner or patent owner, they were included in our calculation. And overall, they had to be involved in at least 20 cases. For law firms and attorneys, again, based on the average, we set the cutoff number to 20. So they had to be involved in at least 20 cases as a patent owner or petitioner. So there is a question about statistical analysis and what is included in that. I'll get to that question hopefully at the end of the webinar. So let me move on. So some of the law firms who purchased the report or who wanted to purchase the report asked about the ranking and potentially if there is any badges that they can display on their website or inside different brochure or marketing materials. So yes, we have designed badges, and as you can see, there's only 2 types based on the type of the ranking, either the most active or the best performing. And for each type, we have identified the top 10, top 25, and top 50. So we will provide this to all our business partners, whomever, all the law firms who purchase the report, and we will provide the top 2 badges for each category. So for example, if there is an attorney in the firm that is among the top 10, but the firm is among the top, we will provide the top 10 badge. Okay, so one example for law firms. For example, looking at Fish & Richardson is one of the most active firms, actually the most active firm in terms of IPR. They have been named in multiple categories in our ranking. They have been among the top 50 overall, again, top 50 on the petitioner side and top 50 on the patent owner side. As for the performance, they have been among the top 50 best performing law firms for petitioners. So depending on where they stand, we will provide them once they purchase the best category badge, for each of these two, if they fall into top 10 or top 25 or top 50. So overall, in all these rankings, there were about 96 law firms that were named. That's about 10% of 1,000 plus law firms. So there is an appendix in the report that covers all cases, again, cases on the petitioner or patent owner side, as well as the performance for all these 96 law firms. So it's a very good resource for different law firms to see where they stand, and also for companies to use the data and see how the top law firms are performing. Similarly, for attorneys, again, Naveen Moody from Paul Hastings is the most active attorney overall. So we have released different rankings, and as you can see, for example, for Naveen, he has been among the top 50 most active overall, or the top 50 on the petitioner side, as well as the top 50 on the patent owner side. In terms of performance, he's among the top 50 for patent owner side. So again, we will provide the law firm, obviously, depending on if Paul Hastings is the other ranking, we will provide the top 2 badges. But in terms of the report, in our Platinum edition, there is an appendix that covers all the attorneys that were named in one of these rankings. That was about 160 attorneys. And basically, there are questions. I'll get to them as soon as my presentation ends, because there is a delay. So in the appendix, we cover, again, everything, all the stats about these 160 attorneys. This is 163 out of over 5,000 attorneys. So again, we've covered the total number of cases, their performance based on the formula that I described earlier. Again, activity on either side. So how can this data be used by companies? So in the data, again, in our report, we've shown like 150 companies that have been named in one of the rankings out of 3,000. For them, we have calculated their performance. So using this table, for example, a company that's very active, such as Apple, they can look at their own performance and percentage-wise see where they stand. Obviously, they can compare their performance with their peers, in the industry. And also, they can compare their performance with the counsels they have used and see, depending on how they have performed, if they want to use one counsel more often because of their performance, or switch to another counsel. Or say if there is a new petition filed and you're for the first time as a patent owner, and you want to pick a counsel, again, you can use this data, again, scientifically to see how these law firms or attorneys have performed, and pick your best counsel based on the data. So other use cases for law firms, obviously, the best use case is for business development and for brand building. We're going to work closely with our law firm partners and help them build the brand. Again, this is backed by numbers, so they can use it in different marketing materials. They can use it for competitive analysis. And one of the use cases we've seen recently is for recruiting. A lot of top law firms had initially ignored PTAB and IPR, but because of its popularity, they have decided to start, basically launch that practice. And they use this for potentially talent acquisition. Other use cases for strategy and execution. Again, we have the ranking of judges and their historical performance that can be used by the team on either side to work into their strategy. For companies, as I explained earlier, mainly it's for selecting their counsels for the new cases. as well as for competitive analysis, comparison with different other companies in their sector. And we have seen some clients from the financial institutes. Again, there are a number of companies ranked in our report that are publicly traded. A number of MPEs in particular have been named there, and some financial institutes purchased the report mainly to see how they are doing. Some pharmaceutical companies, again, it's their business is very much dependent on patents. So this is a good way for investors to see if they have been successful in IPRs and whether the patents have survived or is surviving overall. So in terms of brand building and PR and client presentation, I want to emphasize that what differentiates this from other marketing tools, it's a third-party endorsement, independent third-party endorsement. It's backed by numbers, so it's very different than other marketing materials that you've seen. Top 50 category is 5% of 1,000 plus law firms, so it's quite impressive, and it helps the law firm to stand out among other law firms. And again, the performance has been assessed, based on the number and the results of the law firm. So it's not an opinion; it's basically analysis. So with that said, we're gonna work closely with our law firm partners to help build the best brand and promote their IPR practice. They can obviously display the ranking and the badges on their website. And on our website, for all the law firms, we have a dedicated page. We're going to work with the law firms, with our law firm partners, and more information about their IPR practice on our page on the law firm on Patexia website. Aside from that, obviously, they can publish it on social media, and we have a newsletter. This morning we released our Patexia Chart 42, designing that, and we're gonna cover different aspects of their IPR practice in our newsletter. It's all again number driven, and it comes in different form of content. We distributed to over 70,000 IP professionals in our network. That's another tool we're going to use to make sure it becomes very effective and has a good impact. And obviously, they can use this in all their marketing materials, such as posters, brochures, and obviously included in their presentation and sales pitches to current or future clients. Again, it's a good way by comparing their performance to performance of the company and maybe the law firms the company has been using. It's an easier justification to help with the business development. So since we released, we've got so much feedback from the community, and we already have some plans for our next release. Initially, we wanted to have this twice a year, but with the amount of work, we anticipate that it's going to be once a year. And every release, we want to make sure that it's and has answers basically the questions of the community and brings value to the reader. So for the next release, we've got some feedback. We're going to include comparison of NPE versus operating companies and see whether there is any difference in terms of judgment or overall success rate for different entity types. There has been some questions by companies about the IPR cost analysis. We're going to work again with our law firm, estimate the cost in different phases of IPR, and include a report, something in our report about the cost. And market size, again, there has been questions by some law firms that want to expand into IPR, and generally they're curious to know whether this is an expanding market or is shrinking. With the pending Supreme Court case that's going to be decided in February, there are some questions about that. So we're going to cover that as well. And again, some companies reached out to us and they were curious to know the ranking based on the technology areas. For example, whether we can provide some rankings for top attorneys or law firms that are active in life science versus high-tech software or semiconductor. And again, we've had some feedback from some law firms that they weren't active in the beginning, but they have got super active lately in the past couple of years. And the question is, okay, it's not maybe fair if somebody who was active early on and they're not active right now, they are listed in the report. So we're gonna do another analysis and look at the top or the fastest growing law firms that have become super active in the last 24 months. So with that said, I would like to also remind that pretty much all the attorneys in the United States that practice patent should have a profile on our website, and same for law firms in the IP. Like there is about like 13,000 law firms and 70,000 attorneys. Our goal is to bring value and make sure these attorneys, you know, their cases, everything about them is right. So you can, it's free. You can claim your page and make sure it's up to date. And we constantly update it from the different data sources we have. And last thing is about our crowdsourcing contest. It's a very powerful tool for IPR. As you know, prior art is very critical in the success of IPR, and crowdsourcing of crowd for finding or discovering documents. We currently have 2 contests. It's a contest-based model with a cash prize. As you can see on the right-hand side, the prize is $7,000. So we can use this platform to make sure the success rate of your IPR cases goes up. So my contact information is also on the side. With that, I'll get into the questions that I see on the. Somebody asked if at least one claim was canceled, it was counted as a win. So if the attorney or law firm is representing the petitioner, at least one claim is canceled, that's correct. That's a win for the petitioner, but it's a loss for the patent owner. So generally, it's harder for patent owners, you know, to win IPR based on the model we have used here. Second question from Greg, he says, describe what is in the statistical analysis in silver level. So we have so many charts in the silver level. The sample table of contents basically covers that. So comparison at the case, claim, and patent level of success rate, you know, what percentage survived, what percentage didn't. Also comparison of which technology areas or IPC codes are more popular. We've calculated the survival rate for patents, because one patent might be basically challenged 10 times in IPR, while 9 of those IPR cases may get denied. Only it takes one IPR to kill the patent. So it's not fair to say that denial rate is 90% when there's a single patent. Basically, we should say the kill rate is 100%. So we have looked at that to identify whether there is a difference between case level statistics that the patent office is reporting versus like the patent level. We have looked at also the comparison of institution rate for life science versus high tech, and whether there was questions that life sciences patents are more robust, patent office does a better job, or inventions are generally stronger. And one very valuable data that it's in the silver package is basically the list of patents that survived. As you know, it's not easy to go through IPR and receive the final written decision and none of your claims get canceled. So we've identified 121 patents that so far in 6,580 cases were challenged, some of them multiple times, some like 6 to 9 times, and they all survived. So these are, assuming that they were part of the active litigation, these are very valuable patents, again, assuming that there was an infringement and the market they address is a large market. The other statistical data, we've looked at the institution date, whether the 6 months the patent office talks about is accurate. Again, there is histogram about that. I can't recall, but many different charts, again, year-over-year analysis of rate or denial rate, whether that has been going up, going down, whether that tells us if the patent owners have become more sophisticated over time since the start of IPR, or the quality of patents in force has changed over time with in the presence of IPR. So these are some of the stuff covered in the silver package. The third question is, we understand you obtained the names of the attorneys involved. So as for the name of the attorneys, it's an ongoing process. So the condition for us to include somebody in the report, or basically somebody gets the credit for a case, they should be named in one of the documents. We use institution decision, denial decision, or FWD decision, as well as notices. So that's been part of our work. It's for the next release, we're improving the method. Again, it's a mix of computer methods. We crawl and parse PDF files automatically, and part of it is done manually. So, and that's why we have given access to attorneys to view their cases. Everybody can view their cases live on the site, and as long as they use the same email of the law firm, that's kind of for verification, they can change their cases. We only allow the attorney to change the cases of his or her own profile. The last question is about the IPR case cost. So we are designing the model. We have divided the IPR into multiple, basically preparing the petition. A lot of cases are settled once the petition is filed. Then another phase is PO response filed, and obviously discovery phase. And so we have divided into 4 or 5 phases that the cost will go up based on the feedback we've got from different firms. And again, different cases stop at different levels. Obviously, the cost associated to that is going to be different. So we know that maybe on average the cost is $250,000 to $500,000, but it varies also based on the law firm, again, the type of the case, and many different factors. So we try to come up with a mathematical model, as well as collect some statistics from a number of law firms. It's going to be anonymous. Obviously, we're not going to provide any information about different law firms, but we're going to use the data just to build and make sure the model is accurate and hopefully benefit the entire community. So that's how we're going to do it, and we're going to continue building that model because it fluctuates. So even if we say, okay, the cost this year is $250,000 or $500,000, it's going to go up or down depending on demand and supply and other factors. So that's how we are planning, and you will hopefully, those involved in IPR, and we will invite them to participate in this survey, hopefully to help us build that model. Okay, I don't see any other questions. I hope I was able to answer most of your questions. Again, my contact information was in the presentation. The presentation will be available online after this webinar. And feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. We will be happy to help with you, help and work with you for your IPR practice. Thank you and have a nice